Yo guys, what's up? I'm here with my first Borderlands 4 video. This is technically my second. I uploaded this video before, but I realized I got a lot of stuff with the build actually wrong. So I'm re-uploading it. I'm making a new version of the build. I also want to be a little bit faster about getting the information out to y'all. So this is my first video. I'm just going to call it my first video. This is my third level 50 character. I've been waiting to kind of get my grasp on a character and find one that I really like and want to share a build on, and it's this Rafa build. Let's get straight into it, guys. I want to start this off. This video is a tediore Rafa build. It utilizes tediore weapons and ordnance to do a lot of damage. You've probably seen videos like it, but I have a lot of insights to share and a lot of my own tweaks that I think you guys will enjoy. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about how tediore weapons actually work, because this is part of the video I got wrong. I thought tediore weapons, my bad. I thought tediore weapons scaled with splash damage, but they actually do not. You can put on an enhancement that gives you splash damage and nothing else that benefits the gun, and you will not do more damage. It will benefit your ordnance and your action skill if you're using the missiles, but it will not benefit the tediore reloads. The only thing that benefits a tediore reload is the magazine of the gun, the reload speed of the gun, and the damage on the gun. In previous Borderlands games, it took into account the pellet count of your gun. So like if you were using a shotgun with times 10, that would actually make it do more damage. That might be the case in this game. I'm not 100% sure, but keep your eyes out for that. And also ordnance damage might be able to affect them. Not 100% sure about that. And indirect damage affects them, which comes from your skill tree, which I'll get into. So you obviously want reload speed, because guns reloading faster means more DPS. Like this Chuck right here, for example, the base is a 0.7 reload, and you can see how fast I can do this. And this is a 1.9 second reload at base. So you can do a lot of damage by having a lot of reload speed. With that out of the way, let's get into the actual build. So because this is an ordnance and splash slash tediore style build, the skill tree is mostly taking use of the red tree. I'm going to kind of speed run through these skills and just tell you guys what they're doing and why I picked them. Let's get straight into it. So I have this skill for 25% increased gun damage. This increases the damage of our tediore throws. I have this skill right here. Whenever we crit, our action skill gets 15% of its duration restored every 4 seconds. This just keeps us in our ult longer so that we can have our buffs up longer, which I'll get into. I have one point into Resiliencia just to get down the tree, but this is a decent skill because we can boost overdrive skills later. It gives us some nice damage reduction. I have El Valiente. Whenever our shields are full, we deal more damage with all sources. When our shields are maxed, the bonus on this is doubled, so it's 60% damage when you're full shields. And I have Shield Barriest to also get down the tree. This is also an overdrive skill, so it gets buffed, so it's actually pretty decent. Once we get to the 4th tiers, I have Asymmetric Warfare. This increases the damage our indirect projectiles do by 45%. This, like I said, is our tediore reloads. This is our action skills weapons, and potentially even some grenades will work with this. I have Confetti here. This gives our ordnance bonus damage based on the element of our gun we are holding. So if we're using a fire grenade and we're throwing a kinetic weapon, our grenade would do 56% bonus kinetic damage. I only have 3 points into this. I'm getting the other 4 from a class mod, but put whatever extra points you have into this skill if you see some of my skills that you don't want, or with the 3 that I had left over. I went Barrage. This gives us 35% splash damage as long as we're in overdrive. This buffs our grenades, and this buffs our volatile hollow points Peacemaker cannons, which I'm using for the capstone. This makes the Peacemaker cannons shoot rockets. Once we get to the 6 tiers, I have Double Maker. This seems like not that good of a skill until I get into my specializations, so just bear with me. We get 30% movement speed and 2.5% health regeneration whenever overdrive is active, which is pretty much all the time when we're actually killing stuff because we're getting it restored from our crits. And when I'm running through ads, like through mobs, I'm using Instinto, which is a kill skill, basically, that you get 10% of your action skill back on a kill. However, every time you also drain the duration of it faster, but that doesn't really come into account because we're just restoring so much that it never actually runs out as long as things are dying. So for Ripper drill sites and things like that, Instinto is what you want to do. But this movement speed ends up being really good later on because of our specialization tree. Whenever overdrive is not active though, we do take 20% more damage, but our action skill comes back 20% faster. You'll see that that damage taken doesn't really matter, and most of the time when you would be getting hit, you're in your ult. So then we have Temerario, however you pronounce this. This is an overdrive skill as well, and every second we are in overdrive, we get 5% gun damage, but we lose 5% handling, up to 10 stacks after 10 seconds. This is 50% gun damage and 50% minus gun handling. Gun handling just means that, from my understanding, your gun has more recoil and the reticle gets bigger, but we don't really care about either of those things because the most we're ever doing is shooting one time and then reloading, and the reloads don't get affected by this with tediore. We don't actually need the bullets to hit. Then we have Soltado. I'll just finish off this segment right here. We have Soltado. Whenever we get a kill, everything that I said was an overdrive bonus gets doubled. So this becomes 60% movement speed and 5% health regeneration. This becomes 100% gun damage and minus 100% gun handling. This becomes 70% splash damage for our grenades and our action skill. And this gets buffed up and this gets buffed up. Then, once we go into this section, we have Aaron Spark. This is just a continuation of asymmetric warfare, basically, and it states that all direct projectiles deal bonus incendiary damage. If the indirect projectile already deals incendiary damage, the damage bonus is doubled. So, if we're using our grenade, which is incendiary, it gets 80% of its damage dealt as additional incendiary damage. That's just really strong. And if we're using something kinetic, 40% of its damage dealt is dealt as bonus incendiary damage. With that out of the way, let's get into the blue tree. The blue tree is pretty simple. I just went with rinse. This is our skill for getting reload speed. We're spending most of our time reloading because we're using tediore reloads, so 20% is very, very good. And we get more of this once I get to the firmware. The one thing I will recommend is most of the time you're probably going to be on Instinto, but whenever you're doing just boss farming, like a Moxie's Encore that's like a side quest boss or a Volt boss or anything like that, I would use Instafort Battle System. The Instafort Battle System will throw copies of your grenade, which the normal Peacemaker cannons with Instinto do not do, and our grenade is a big part of our boss damage, which I'm going to get into in a second. But whenever you're doing Ripper drill sites or just running through areas, definitely use Instinto as you keep your ability up for a very long time. With that out of the way, let's get into the specializations and then the gear. Specializations for me is still a work in progress, but I'm going to tell you guys what you want and what you need. So you definitely want to go riddle you this. Whenever you deal gun damage, you get a stack of increased gun damage. This stacks 50 times for 50%, and the stacks last 6 seconds and can be refreshed upon doing gun damage again. We want to have full spectrum arsenal. This makes our ordnance benefit from 50% of the increases that our gun damage gets. So our ordnance is just going to do a lot of damage. You also get ordnance cooldown rate by going this way, and you get gun damage by going this way. Another thing you're going to want to get is right here, I am a gun underneath Daredevil. This allows you to have 50% of your gun damage applied to your action skill. It's like it's like what it does for your grenade, but for your action skill. And we want Bullet Train. This is why I was saying movement speed is good. If you get 15% gun damage just by walking, imagine the gun damage you get by moving at 60% speed when you're in overdrive with the kill skill procced. Then I just mentioned 3, or no, I'm tripping. Yeah, I mentioned 4, but if you didn't want to go the movement speed, you could definitely trade this out for the best defense, which is 30% damage when your health is full, or you could trade it out for fragmentation payload. Our grenade hits many, many times, so this would be a lot of crit chance and a lot of crit damage for our ordnance, which is a big part of our boss damage. Now we get into the gear. So for mobbing, well, I should mention, we have two kinds of guns. We have guns for mobbing and guns for bossing. The Ruby's Grasp is probably the best thing for mobbing in my experience, at least. This gun comes from Vile Lictor, and what it does is when you reload it with the tediore reload, it throws out 4 copies. You're going to notice mine throws out more, but that's for reasons I'll get into with the class mod, but it throws out 4 homing copies. This makes it really good against ads. You can kind of just throw it into the air in the general direction of mobs, and they'll get got. So I can show it over here actually. I can't even see these enemies right now, but I can just throw this and it'll find them. Makes it very, very strong. It can come in different elements, so get the element you want for your specific needs. I like Incendiary because it gets that fat double bonus from the Errant Spark skill. Next up, we have this purple assault rifle right here that I love. This thing is amazing. It's basically a purple version of the Chuck that in some ways is actually better, and I'll get to the Chuck in a second if you don't already know what it is. But this is where I just kind of tell you about things to look out for with tediore guns. If the gun has a high magazine size, that adds to the damage of the tediore reload. If the gun has a fast reload time, that makes using it more enjoyable and also gives it DPS because you can throw it more often. And if the gun has a high damage stat, that applies to the damage of the reload. So with this gun, it has Replicator on it, which is what you're looking for on all of your guns. Do not use Merv. It is just bad. The only time Merv could even be remotely decent is if you're on a boss that can get hit by every single Merv, which is not the majority of bosses, and even still it's worse than Replicator. The Mervs actually do not very much damage, and from my testing, when a weapon has Merv on it, the actual explosion of the weapon itself does reduced damage for some reason compared to a normal explosion. For example, the Chuck here, I got one with Merv, and it actually did less damage than not having Merv at all and having just one throw, which is really strange. So Replicator is definitely what you want. Replicator homing is even better. When I throw this gun, it looks like this. You'll see there's 3. That's because of my class mod. This does a lot of damage. Trust me, guys. Each throw of this is doing like 150,000, and that's only counting one of the guns. And that's not counting the fire damage that it does as a bonus. So 3 of those plus the bonus incendiary damage. Then we get to the Chuck. This also comes with Replicator homing. I just don't have it. It has the pitcher, which basically means when you hold down the shoot button, the gun just throws. So I can just hold down left click this entire time, and it'll just keep on throwing and throwing and throwing. I don't need to waste time shooting, reloading like I would with basically any other gun, like this one, shoot, reload. The Chuck is also really good because its reload time is 0.7 seconds, which I do not believe you can get by default on other tediore guns. It's insanely low. The only downside of the Chuck is that its magazine size is pretty low, so it doesn't, that doesn't add a lot to the damage of it. But because of its reload time and because of its base damage, it is still very, very good. It's pretty strong. And then my 4th option here is just something to mess around with. It's not very good. With guns out of the way, let's get into the rest of the gear. So I have a rep kit here with splash damage and rage. As I said, splash damage does not affect tediore reloads, but it does affect our grenade. And our grenade is where a lot of our boss damage actually comes from. This has a 14-second cooldown, and the effects last 10 seconds, so I get 25% splash and 30% to all damage for 10 seconds. This is up very often. I would recommend finding a rep kit like this and actually not using a legendary one, because the thing about this game is you don't need rep kits that are up all of the time, because most bosses you can kill very quickly. So you just need a rep kit that's really good in a burst, in a pinch, in a short moment. The reason being, you can kill a boss in a short moment. You can kill a bunch of ads in a short moment. So I would rather have a purple rep kit that gets 2 bonuses than a legendary rep kit that I can have 3 charges of but only get one benefit, like one use of, especially when there's things like order that give you 2 charges, so you're only getting 1 extra charge, but you're losing a whole perk from it. Then we get to the thing that makes this build insanely strong, and I'm actually going to show a clip of it right here, what this grenade does to bosses.
I tried to save you.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's the fire pot. Shoutouts to the people that found this before me, that have posted videos about this before I'm making this one. I wouldn't be using this grenade if I didn't hear about this. What makes this grenade so broken is it fires these sticky homing torques. So these grenades right here will home onto enemies, and they will stick to them. Then they act like regular torque stickies, where when you swap weapons or reload, they blow up. So you can see if I throw this grenade and then use my chuck, they all blow up. This is really strong because these torque stickies scale with gun damage increases as well as ordnance damage increases. So if you get this full spectrum arsenal, not only does the grenade already scale with your gun damage, but now it scales with 50% additional gun damage, makes it do a absolute poop ton of damage. Even without that though, you'll be one-shotting bosses with this thing. I got mine with nuke. I'm pretty sure it always comes with fire. This grenade is what you want. There's also the blockbuster. If you're just running through mobs and ripper drill sites, this grenade's awesome. Here's what it does. I'm throwing 2 because of my class mod. This grenade's very good against mobs. It clears out a humongous area and actually does a lot of damage. Mobs will not really survive this, but as soon as you're getting to a boss, definitely throw on the fire pot. Then we get to our class mod that I've been speaking about this whole time, and that is the Grenazerker class mod. Whenever you throw a grenade or a tediore gun, you throw an additional 1. This is really good because if you're only throwing 1 gun, this doubles your damage, and if you're throwing 3 guns, that's still like a 50% damage increase. As well as the skills it gives are very, very good, and I happen to get mine with elemental damage, gun damage, which is insane. I'll look at the skills right now so you can see we're getting confetti, we're getting Ariba, and we're getting Synergia. I would recommend getting a class mod that has 4 into the red skill and 3 into the green skill, as these are the ones that make the biggest difference, because this is going to be a 60% gun damage increase when you have this to 3 points after 10 stacks. Now the thing is, your grenade still does ordnance damage, and those torque stickies are homing and do not miss, so imagine how fast I can stack this up to get that damage bonus before my grenade blows up. Basically, my grenade does ordnance damage to give me stacking gun damage, and then when the torque stickies blow up, they deal ordnance damage and gun damage, so the grenade stacks its own damage up to 60%. If I had 3 points, right? That's a lot of damage. And then obviously you're getting the bonus damage in your gun's element from this point right here. Then we get to our shield, which is the fireworks shield. My roll here is not good at all, and you do not want trick shot on this build. That's just what mine has. I'll get into firmware at the end, but basically what you want is the bundled and the missile swarm, which it always comes with. Whenever you get a kill, it will spawn these red missiles that fall from the sky and track down enemies. So let me see if I can show that off for you guys over here.
You've got grit, I'll give you that. Great, well said.
You can see those missiles, they hit the roof there, but I'll kill this guy. Oh, and myself. You can see the missiles flying around. They're going to track down enemies. They didn't make it to anybody, but they do absurd amounts of damage, and they pretty much one-shot most mobs. And then they chain on and kill other mobs. It's actually very, very effective. And as well, when an armor segment breaks, it launches those same missiles. They just deal less damage, but those missiles get buffed the same, so they still do a lot of damage. And then I have reflect, but that's not what you want. Get what you believe suits the build best. Then we get to our enhancement. My enhancement is in no means very good, but I will recommend having Banger for the 50% max loaded ammo when it's calculating its thrown damage. That's just basically as if you had 50% magazine size as a roll on the enhancement. And then I have gun damage. So if I go to my notes here, because I am frankly kind of a nerd, I was taking these notes. What we're focusing on is my enhancement part. So gun damage is better than mag size. I've tested it. If you get 25% gun damage, that does more for you than 50% mag size. And I believe the same would be true if you got specifics like assault rifle damage and assault rifle mag size. If it's weapon specific, the percent is higher. So take that with a grain of salt. And yeah, splash damage does not affect tediore reloads. The best enhancement in terms of the priority of the bonuses would be gun damage or weapon specific gun damage, mag size or weapon specific mag size, and reload speed or weapon specific reload speed. The reason I say this is because gun damage is better than mag size, as I've tested, and then mag size is better than reload speed, in my opinion. Now you can get like gun damage, assault rifle damage, reload speed, and that would be pretty good. Assault rifle damage, gun damage, magazine size, and that'd be pretty good. But I think you'd want a mix of the three. So if you're going to be mainly using assault rifles, I would get assault rifle damage, assault rifle reload speed, and assault rifle magazine size for the biggest increase. I would use all of that with the banger enhancement until you get a legendary one and you get banger with the thing that allows you to throw 2 tediore guns 50% of the time. Or I should say an extra tediore gun 50% of the time. The reason why I don't use that and I use banger is because when I'm throwing my guns, I'm always throwing 2 or more because I use replicator, and when you're adding an extra gun, when you already throw 2, it's not as big of an increase as throwing 2 guns that both have 50% more ammo, basically. Now, if you're only using a 1 gun setup and you're not using replicator, then yes, throwing a second gun 50% of the time would potentially be better, but you're probably using replicator, so banger's better. Now, let's get into the firmware that you want. This is where my build differs a lot from other people's on YouTube, and that has to do with firmware. So, most people want Gadget Ahoy and Airstrike, and while I don't think that that's bad, I'm going to tell you guys why I think what I want to do is better. So, I want to do a 3 set of Gadget Ahoy, 1 piece of Heating Up, and 1 piece of Oscar Mike. You might be saying, why? Airstrike is so good. Well, Airstrike is, if I'm not wrong, splash radius and splash damage. Splash damage and splash radius do not affect the tediore reloads at all in any way. They do nothing. So, what I'm thinking is, if my grenade already one-shots bosses, and I can already one-shot adds, I don't need my ordnance to be a ton better. So, I'm just going Gadget Ahoy. Gadget Ahoy does buff our ordnance, but it buffs it in ways that also help our other skills, or our other forms of damage. So we get 15% to the cooldown, the ordnance does 20% more damage, and then for the third piece, any kill with the ordnance gives us a 20% damage increase for 15 seconds. That's a long time. So I can buff my ordnance while still getting buffs in other ways. Then I go Heating Up, which gives me 20% reload speed, and Oscar Mike, which gives 10% reload speed. This adds up to be 30% reload speed, plus the Rinse 20% reload speed for 50% reload speed. So we're taking half the time off, and that's before we even get to enhancements having reload speed, which if it's gun specific can be a very high percent. And you can be reloading guns insanely quickly. I actually did the math and took some pictures, and if you're using a gun like the Chuck, which has a 0.7 reload time, it becomes a 0.21 second reload. If you're using a gun like the purple assault rifle I showed at the beginning, which has a 1.9 second reload, this becomes a 0.5 second reload. This is insane for damage, and it's going to do way more for you than going Airstrike would, because Airstrike would not be buffing your tediore reloads at all, and this would be buffing them by an insane amount. Even by not having the reload time, the reload speed on your enhancement, you would be taking a 1.9 second reload to a 0.95 second reload, and a 0.7 like the Chuck to a 0.35. That's before you even get into enhancements having reload speed. So that's what I'm going to be doing for my firmware. I just need to get the pieces and get the gear that's worth putting the pieces on. With that out of the way, let's get into actually showing off this build, guys. Alright guys, so here I am at the Ripper drill site. This is the Ripper drill site that drops the Chuck. I just thought that I would mention this. This is the Pitted Stain drill site here on the map. And I should also mention that the Blockbuster grenade comes from Vile Lictor as well as this gun. And that's what I'm going to be using to run through this drill site. I'm also going to be using Instinto for the action skill restore. You want to be in your action skill as often as possible and get the restore from getting them kills. So a little trick you can do is you can just hold down the shoot button and spam the reload button, and you will shoot and reload as soon as you're able to. And all I really am doing right now is looking at the mini-map, looking at the radar, and looking at the red triangles, the red diamonds, and throwing my guns in that direction. The bosses spawn in, so I switch to my AR because that's what I use for damage. Pop my rep kit. And they're out of here. Let me kill the rest of these ads, look at the loot, and then I'll meet you guys at a Vault Boss. Alright guys, here I am at the Vault Boss that I was showing in the one clip. And this is who I'm going to be showing this section on. So I'm going to be using the fire pot and showing you what we can really do against an actual boss. I should also switch to the turret, pop my action skill, throw it on the turret, throw my grenades, pop my rep kit, shoot, and reload. Yep, that is the build. That's what it does to bosses. Just make sure that when you're throwing down your turret and when you're throwing your grenades, the boss's health bar is actually like on screen. Sometimes bosses have like a spawn in animation, and during the time that a boss is not damageable, your fire pot stickies will also not track to it. It will not treat it as an enemy to actually land on. So make sure you wait until that happens. And look at this freaking class mod I just got. Actually, while recording, that's insane. That is the role I was actually just talking about, with 4 into the red skill and 3 into the green skill. However, it's gun damage, assault rifle damage, which, you'd probably want elemental because that would affect everything that you're doing, not just your guns. But hey, that's actually pretty insane. And to celebrate, let's just do another kill and do it with this new class mod. What the heck? That's freaking awesome. And yeah, I guess that's a good way to tell you guys this is where you get it. You get it from the Vault of Radix. And yeah, let's get another kill on here. So I find this build to be a lot of fun. Let me know what you guys are using down in the comments below. I would actually like to know. I've tried Mo as well. I've tried Harlow with the green tree, staying in the Halo sidekick ability and buffing my teammates using the crits. And I've tried Vex with the bleed build, and honestly I prefer this build over all of those, and it's not using any bugs to do what it does, which makes it even better because this is not likely to get nerfed anytime soon. As the next nerf, they're mainly just looking to fix things that aren't working properly. So unless this grenade's bugged, of course it isn't supposed to do the gun damage stuff, which is possible. I don't see this actually getting nerfed. Yep. So you can see it pretty much did the same amount of damage, so honestly I'm pretty happy about the assault rifle damage. The only thing is it won't buff my Ruby's Grasp. I would definitely recommend getting the bonuses that I had on this one with the elemental damage and the gun damage, unless you can get reload speed in these slots, which I'll actually have to look up. and C, but that would definitely be pretty good as well. You could get the reload times down even lower, but a role like this with the perks of this one is what I would look for, guys. Anyway, take care. I'll see y'all in the next one. Hopefully I'll be pumping out a little bit more videos than I have been, but I just wanted to get this one out and show you guys what I've been doing, what I've been up to, and give you guys a nice little build to try.